Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to another presentation by Simply Mail Solutions. This week we're doing something a little bit different, and I hope that that you'll find it informative and actually enjoy it. And it's going to be about video conferencing. And when I first heard about this subject that we thought about doing, I initially thought wrongly, I think, that most people know all of the key facts around doing video conferencing effectively, and you know what the do's and don'ts. But when we stepped through it, it became a lot more enlightening about some of the issues and some of the rules, perhaps that we should all take care to abide by when doing this kind of presentation and this kind of connection when in a professional and a business environment. So that's what we're going to do today, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Lucy, who's a relatively new member of the team at Simply Mail Solutions, and she's going to be working with me today and talking with me today. So hi, Lucy.
Hi. It's nice to join you.
To step through what we're going to go through. So as usual, I always start these presentations off with the same thing, which is absolutely as it is that we're here to help our customers in all areas of cloud services, okay, to step you through the functionality, which in many instances most of our customers already have, to provide you with free of charge solutions where relevant, and of course to ensure that you've got all the tools that you need, particularly in the current environment that we're all operating with. We like to try and ensure that our customers are secure and avoiding spam in their email and any other intrusive malware that they may have being attempted to get onto their data and into their solutions. And as normal, we're always here to help you get set up, get your staff set up, and get you fully operational. We're a UK-based team, and our support team and our sales team indeed will always be happy to talk with you. So today we're going to talk about video conferencing, and that's in a business environment. Many of us, I believe, are used to operating in a social media environment, which in many instances might use the same tools, but perhaps not use the same disciplines as we're going to step through today. And I hope that you'll find it interesting and enlightening. So first of all, what would you say, Lucy, do you think the first key things that you need to think about before doing a business video conferencing and conference call?
Thanks, Chris. That's a good question. I think, first of all, one of the most important things is to find a good space that you're comfortable in to join the call from. Ideally a quiet space, somewhere with not lots of background noise or any sort of disruptions from external sources. So obviously at the moment, a lot of us are working from home and have other members of the household maybe working, people working schoolwork, work all in the same house. It's not always possible to find a completely silent space. People understand that, but somewhere ideally that you can be cut off from most disruptive sounds and you can be comfortable joining the meeting without interruption.
I think that's really good. I think I spend, as many of us do at the moment, a huge amount of our time using this medium, far more than perhaps we've ever done in the past. Yeah. And in the past, perhaps that was done out of convenience. But today, of course, with many of us working from home, it's done out of necessity. And I think it's worth pointing out at this point, actually, very early on, that these things here are not always ideal. You can't always do them, or if you've done them, circumstances can change when you're working from home. Many people have young children, some people have pets, particularly dogs that are quite happy to bark, particularly when there's a delivery, the postman arrives or whatever have you. People understand that and just deal with it calmly and just say, I'm very, very sorry, I've got an interruption, give me a minute and I'll come back to you. So these are obviously the ideal circumstances to go through in a video conferencing scenario. But when ideal changes, be relaxed about it. Explain that I've got to step out of the call for a moment. I've just had an interruption. People understand that. In terms of the environment, I think they're really good points, Lucy. What do you think about the the tools that you're going to use, what do you think we should be doing in that area?
Well, with video calling, I think obviously some of these calls can last a long time because it could emulate a real meeting in real life, could be last 1-2 hours. So it's definitely important to get your device set up beforehand, ready for the meeting. So an important point I would say would be to fully charge your device if it's a wireless device before you join. So then you don't want any interruptions. Like we said, we want to minimize disruption or delay wherever possible if you're in control of it. So definitely I would say charge up your device before the meeting if possible, or maybe even leave it on charge during the meeting, or at least keep a charging cable nearby so you're not having to go, oh, it's just popped up saying I've got 10% left, I'm going to have to run off and find my charger, I don't know where it is, and it's causing disruption. It's definitely best to just get yourself set up before the meeting, I'd say.
I think that's great advice, and I think we've all been there at some point in the past. So I think forewarned is forearmed there, and in terms of checking those basics before you do it. So what about the setup that you're going to put into place prior to a call? What are the key points in that area that we should look at?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to consider. I'd say some basic points. I would just say take a couple of minutes before you join the call to check that basic things are up and running, ready to go. So for example, checking that you're connected to the internet and have a stable connection. So maybe just do a quick Google search or something like that just to check that you're online. Maybe even do a speed test just to check that things are running reliably. As obviously you don't want to be like, right, I'm ready, 2:30, I'm about to join, and then you're not even connecting because you're not on the internet. So it's definitely best to just check beforehand things are up and running. I'd probably also say check that your camera and microphone are on, if required, on or off, and things like that beforehand. But we can talk about that later anyway. I'll show people how to set it up. But I think that's something definitely to just take a couple of minutes beforehand to check everything's set up as it should be.
I think they're really good points. I think the other area is certainly I personally have suffered from a couple of times, and now make sure that that's the case. If you have other people that you reside with, particularly brackets younger people that are working from home at this point in time, are making sure that they don't come on and start streaming video, etc., for their own use in the middle of your call is a pretty good tip, because you can start with a great connection and then they suddenly start streaming a film down, and you find you get a slow connection. So I think telling the other people in the house, look, this is a work call, it's important, I'm doing it between these 2 hours, and can you please refrain, I think is another important point. I also struggle in terms of getting the sound right, so I'm interested in terms of video and audio, and how you check that out before a call. If you could step us through that, Lucy, I think that'd be really good.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have the same concerns. I think it's important to make sure, like I said earlier, these meetings can last for a while. So you want to make sure that you're speaking comfortably and not feeling like you have to shout or strain your voice if you're going to be talking for a good while. So I'd say spend a little bit of time testing out your microphone, maybe getting a colleague, friend, family member to join the other end of the call and see how you come across. You can adjust your mic sensitivity, or they can adjust their volume, or how close you are to the microphone, things like that, before you join a meeting, so then you're not joining your real business meeting and they're all going, oh, you're too quiet or you're way too loud, and you've sorted this prior to the call, and it makes things a lot more streamlined, I'd say. Yeah,
great. I think that's really a really good tip. And what would you say about the environment that you're operating in when you're going through the call?
Again, I think it's like you said, you might have a lot of people working in the same household, so it's natural, like you said earlier, dogs barking or people talking in the background, things like that. So if you know that you're about to get a disruption, or you can hear, for example, a dog barking or something in the background, just pressing mute so then it doesn't disrupt other people talking is a good thing. Just click mute off and on. It's pretty simple and easy, just being aware of that so it's not interrupting the meeting. And same with if there's like typing, things like that. Typing can be a bit annoying if you can hear really loud typing in the background when it's unnecessary, when it could be muted. If you're typing up minutes or something like that and not talking while you're typing, it might be a good idea to just press mute while you're typing and then unmute when you want to speak. And I think that can, again, just make it more streamlined if a lot of people are trying to talk at once. You've not got a loud, disruptive noise over the top.
That's great. And we're going to cover a little bit later about hosting these sessions rather than now. But I think in most well-run sessions, when you are an attendee rather than hosting it, the host will request and agree and state clearly what the decorum is for that call. So whether or not you're on mute unless you're speaking, whether your video's on or not when you're not speaking, are things that a good host will go through. And as I've just said, we'll cover those a little bit later. What are the tips around lighting, Lucy, that we should look at?
Yeah, I think lighting is an important one, as obviously it's what people are seeing. So you want to make sure that your screen and how you appear is as clear and as good as possible. So I'd definitely say probably the golden rule is don't light yourself from behind. So if you have a light source, whether it's a window, natural light, or a light or lamp, position yourself facing, or at least partially facing, that light source, so your face can be clearly lit up. Otherwise, if the window or lamp or something is behind you, your face will appear as if you're in shadows, and it's a lot harder to make out your facial expressions and you speaking. So I'd just definitely say, if possible, you know, if you've not got natural light in your room or something, just maybe get a lamp or a light, ring light, something like that. It doesn't have to be expensive, just something that you can put somewhere near you, like facing your face, and it will light you up properly, not from behind. That is definitely the best tip that I would say.
Yeah, I think another tip that I would say is beware of the time of the day it is, because you may start out with very little background light going into the camera at the moment, say at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but by 4:30 the sun starts to get pretty low, and so halfway through the call you could actually get you can get
plunged into darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get light interference as the call progresses. So bearing in mind this is a business call, what do you think about dress?
So yeah, for dress, I think it's obviously we've got to address that it's different from turning up to a real life meeting room, everyone in corporate dress, fully head to toe. But at the same time, joining a business call, you still want to present yourself well. And so from what people can see, which would obviously ideally be your head, neck, shoulders, about there, I'd say present yourself well. So what you would normally wear for a meeting or something like that on your top half, I think is appropriate.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. I've got a really good friend that I've known for many years who lives in pretty hot climate. He used to live in Florida and he now lives in Arizona. Yeah, he's got his shorts on, but he's also got a shirt and a tie on. And of course, nobody sees above his waist. And as soon as his meetings are over for the day, he goes back in the t-shirt. I mean, that's very true. When you see newscasters at the moment, there are many of them that are working from home. They still wear business attire, and I think that shows respect to the other guests that you're working. As we've said, it's a business environment. What about positioning then, Lucy? How should we position ourselves on these calls?
Yeah, I think this one is pretty straightforward and it's common sense, really. Just having yourself where possible in the center of the frame, so not like just the top of your head and your eyes and you can barely see it, and obviously not too far down. It's definitely best to try and align your eyes roughly in the center of the screen, in the center of the frame, or just above, and not too far left, not too far right. Just taking a second to just position yourself before you join the call so people can see you as clearly as possible.
Great. Now we unashamedly are what we would define as a Microsoft house, and the solutions that we provide are primarily Microsoft centric. But as most, if not all of you are aware, there are many other video conferencing suites out there, from Zoom to Google Hangouts, many more besides. So, but many of the things that we're going to go through now, I think they are entirely relevant to any platform that you may be using. Testing out your positioning and how you're going to appear beforehand, but of course that for us is very relevant in the Teams environment, which has a significant amount of functionality to help you do that. So how do we do that in the Teams environment, Lucy?
So what should happen is before you join a meeting, it should come up with this screen that you can see now, and it's like a preview of what other people will see when you join the call. So here is where you would turn on or off your camera and set yourself up, like I said about a slide ago, getting yourself in the center of the frame. This is where you can see how your lighting would appear. You can see how you look, how you sound, and this is what you would use to get yourself all set up, and then you can join how you want to be seen. So if you've been told join but no cameras on, everyone, you don't want to be the one that's joined with your camera on because you've not checked. You want to know this is what's going to be shown. So this is where you'd set it up.
Brilliant. So let's talk a little bit now about backdrops. Now, backdrops are becoming quite common in most video audio conference solutions that are out there. I think there's even an advert that's running at the moment for kitchens where the person in the advert is using a backdrop and won't take it off because they've got not a very nice kitchen, which is obviously reason for buying a new one. But I think backdrops can be important, and they can be effective, and they can add to your professionalism. So I'm interested to hear your comments on backdrops.
Yeah, I think backdrops can be really useful. As we said at the start, finding a comfortable space to join the call from. You could just have a plain, fine, nice background behind you, and you might feel like you don't need a backdrop or want one, but on the flip side, a lot of people would like a nice backdrop. They think whether they've got some people, in the background walking past that they'd rather not be shown, or they just would prefer something fun, whatever. There's really good uses to these backdrops. Microsoft Teams and probably a lot of other video conferencing platforms have a lot of preset ones that you can pick from. So it can just be similar, like you said, just a kitchen or a bookcase or something like that. So it just removes any sort of distracting background that you might have and just makes it look clean, sleek, and it still doesn't look very obviously like a green screen or anything. For a corporate meeting, it still looks professional, but at the same time, there's some fun, exciting backdrops as well for you to try if you wanted to with your colleagues or something that's in a not so serious meeting. I think it's a really useful tool.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's now look and move on to being the host and scheduling a meeting, and so we'll have a look at that. So as I said earlier on, obviously there are two roles in a conference call. One is that of an attendee, and one of that is a host. Certainly I attend them day in, day out in both entities. And I can tell you as an attendee that attending a meeting with a poor host is hard work, and it's not the end of the world, but it's just hard work. And when you are particularly talking, presenting and meeting with customers, and maybe in many instances for the first time using this environment rather than a face-to-face environment, or you're meeting with people that you haven't met with at all, which is extremely likely at the moment. We all know the word, you've got one chance at a first impression, and I think that is very, very, very relevant. So when you are acting as the host, there are a number of tips that I put forward to think about. The first is obviously once you've agreed the meeting, you will send the invite, and the great news with Teams and Outlook is that they are synchronized, and you are able to set up and send an invite out, get the acceptances, and that will automatically put that in everybody's diaries. And so that's your first stance. Obviously at that time it's quite polite, if required, to send an agenda for that meeting of what's going to take place. Ensure everybody knows the objective of the meeting and who the other attendees are going to be on that call. So that is your first start in terms of setting up the call itself. Now let's talk a little bit about the meeting itself, and as to when that starts. Now, one of the things is that in many of these meetings, you have people that are both internal to your company and external. My view is that it is much better to set the meeting up, ensure you have an internal discipline where people join that meeting a few minutes before the scheduled time of the meeting to start internally, so that when you then allow your external guests into the meeting, everybody is present and ready to start the meeting. Now, of course, that maximizes the time of the meeting itself. I think it shows a class act in terms of the care that you've taken and the preparation you've taken to ensure all of the attendees are there. The next thing to do is to, as the host, and you can be the host of the call without being necessarily the chairman of the meeting. They can be the same and often are, but they don't have to be. But is at that point stating and discussing if everybody's comfortable with the way that the call is going to go. So one of those things might be to confirm to everybody the duration that's been set for the call and make sure everybody's happy with that. You know, in some instances, since the invite has been done, somebody may well have inadvertently set another call up, which means that your time is cut short. Of course, in those situations, you don't want to be getting to the key and salient points on that meeting at the point where perhaps the decision maker is just about to leave it. So confirming that is no bad practice. Also confirming whether or not everybody stays on video for the entire call, or whether, if people prefer when they're not speaking, to turn their video off and or turn their audio off. The next is if they wish to speak and make a point, do they wish to use the hand up, which is one of the functions within Teams when they wish to speak, or not. And some people use that, and some people just interrupt the flow to make their point. My recommendation is, if you have more than 5 or 6 people on a call, using hand up is a better way of working, or you can quickly end up with a free-for-all with a number of people trying to speak and at the same time, and of course you've got to then manage that situation so that questions can be answered. They're answered in a requisite order, and everybody feels that they've had the opportunity to make their say and move on. So I think they're key points around being an effective host. I think they are really, really important. And of course, at the end of the call, thanking everybody for attending, wishing them well, agreeing any minutes that have got to be taken, who's going to supply them. In other words, none of the things any different than what it would be if it was in a face-to-face meeting, other than a few extra disciplines that I've just stepped through in terms of what one might do when joining and hosting a meeting. So I'll kind of summarise with Lucy and on really the key points that hopefully that we've been able to cover today, and I'll leave you, Lucy, to really summarise on these points that we've gone through.
Yeah, sure, thanks. So yeah, obviously we talked about a few different tips today. So first of all, we said about finding a quiet and suitable space to join the call from. So obviously we know that in this day and age when a lot of people are working in the same house, you can't always find somewhere that's completely silent, but as quiet as possible and away from everyone as possible that you can. Charging your device before the meeting is definitely recommended, or at least having a charger nearby so you can not interrupt the flow by having to go and get a charger or your laptop or computer dying in the middle of it. Again, it's just things that can make the meeting flow more easily. Avoiding technical errors by testing beforehand. So like we said, checking you're connected to the internet, maybe like you said, Chris, making sure people in your house or on your same Wi-Fi are not going to be streaming films or doing something that's going to make your Wi-Fi run slower before the meeting. Setting up your microphone correctly and making sure you know how you sound, and muting if you're going to have any interruptions like external sounds, dog barking or children screaming, whatever. Lighting your face, like I said, the golden rule, I'd say light your face from the front and not from the back if possible. And be aware of sunlight, like you said, the sun going down at a certain time, you might want to get a lamp or a ring light or something like that. Dressing appropriately for the meeting, well, at least the top half should be still how you would dress for a normal meeting, just to show respect that you're following that etiquette. Position yourself in the middle of the frame, pretty self-explanatory. And then, yeah, just checking before you join. With the little preview screen that we showed, you can check that your camera's on, your mic's on, and you can set up your background and position yourself well before joining the call. And I think it should all go well if you follow those steps.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I hope that you found some, if not all, of the key points that we've gone through. I'm aware that many of those are obvious to many of our listeners today. Some may not be so. All I would say is that this is in a business context and it is a business meeting, and in that situation, all of those key tips there will give you and your attendees a better environment for the call and a better experience. As we always leave you with, we've been here since 2006. We are a specialist cloud provider. We are fully able to support you from our UK help desk. Our staff and our call centre are on hand at any point to talk with you. And if there's any clarification you'd want on any of the points that we've gone through today, please call us. And we're of course happy to talk with you. Our contact details, our website, and our sales line numbers are covered on the slide here. And of course, you can always log on to www.simplymailsolutions.com, get us on our sales or support lines, or email us on our Microsoft 365 address, which again is shown here. So as normal, I'd like to, on behalf of Lucy and myself, thank you for joining us today. I look forward to talking with you again on this series of webinars, which is hopefully enabling you to use our solutions more effectively and safely. So we hope you've enjoyed it and learned something new, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you, and goodbye from me, and
goodbye from me.
Goodbye from Lucy. Take care. Bye-bye.